Without further ado, I want to pass this off to our distinguished moderator. He's an entrepreneur, he's an investor, he's a thought leader, he's a world-famous influencer, but you haven't heard of him. Let's hear it for Ephraim, AKA F. Lindenbaum.
Thanks, Rob, and thank you everybody for coming out for the latest innovations in virtual reality and augmented reality. We have a great program for you tonight. We've got a distinguished panel. We've got super cool VR startups out there, so if you want to experience the Matrix kind of thing, go on out there. And then we've got a special surprise from our friends at GoPro. We'll show you some really cool unseen products there as well. So before I get started, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about our great panel, then I'll ask them to tell us more. I'll do as best as I can here. So first we've got Adam Draper. Adam is the founder. There you go. Adam is the founder and CEO of Boost VC, which is one of the leading AR and VR accelerators, as well as some fintech. Boost VC is dedicated to hosting collaborative environment where new enterprises are exposed to noteworthy speakers, influential mentors, and potential funders. We have Steve Wurzburg, who's a partner here at Pillsbury Law Firm and one of our hosted for the evening. In turn, Steve's got extensive experience with business transactions, intellectual property matters, assisting companies with legal aspects of financing, business, obtaining liquidity for your stock, selling or licensing products, channels for distribution, protecting and profiting from your IP. So if you need to profit from your IP, you need to talk to Steve. And then at the end, we have Marshad Mansouri, Director of Business Development and Head of Immersive Partnerships at GoPro. He is responsible for cultivating VR and mixed reality partnerships with emerging startups, industry alliances, and technology leaders like Google. So why don't I let Marshad tell you a little more about what he does real quick at GoPro, and then we'll just come down the panel here.
Do we push the button or we just speak? Oh, well. Hi. Hi. Hello. Okay. How are yours? Sharing is caring. Hi, I'm Marshad Mansouri. I'm the Director of Biz Dev and Head of VR Partnerships at GoPro. This is a nice effect. Without repeating what Ephraim said, my day-to-day is pretty exciting, where I go out there and I work with really big market cap companies like Facebook, Microsoft, and Google, and promote the GoPro virtual reality. Hello? Okay, there we go. Promote our VR products and promote our VR solutions. They're down?
I think you might read it.
Okay, there we go.
Perfect.
Awesome. Been at GoPro for about 2.5 years now. Have an exciting, have a great time here. We got 3 of our GoPro colleagues here. I'm going to ask them to raise their hand so they can embarrass themselves. I got John Cowan, Lara Soskin, and Tim McMillan. These are all folks that are well versed in the areas of VR, just as myself. So if you have any questions, please go to them straight after the event. I have some pretty cool things to show you, but I have one right here. It's a pretty heavy one. This is what's called Odyssey, and it's our panoramic stereoscopic, that's a mouthful, but it's a 360 3D VR capture device, and this was developed in conjunction with Google, and it's the industry's only commercially available, fully synced and fully stitched VR capture device. It's a really exciting product. It's our first VR product that's shipped. We have amazing brands like BuzzFeed, New York Times, Tastemade. A lot of the VR agencies in LA are using this right now, and we have some great content we'll be showing pretty soon. This was a really exciting step forward for GoPro and VR. Our decision to actually move into creating our own VR rigs is a consequence of all the producers out there that took these amazing, small, innovative cameras that break and create these cool spherical rigs. And GoPro realized that, hey, there's a burgeoning market there, and there's a way to make it better. So we have this. We have our 6-cam solution called Omni. We have a suite of software solutions. VR is near and dear to my heart. It's near and dear to GoPro's heart. And there's a lot that we'll be excited to tell you about during this panel and also later on tonight.
Thank you. Steve?
Thank you for that microphone.
Gee, I wish I had something like that to show.
So you can hold on to it if you want.
Oh, boy. So Pillsbury's an international law firm. We've got offices on the East Coast, in D.C., Northern Virginia, New York, on the West Coast, up and down California, and then also on the Gulf Coast with Austin. And we have some international offices in Japan and China, Abu Dhabi, and like now the United Kingdom. I don't know if after Brexit it'll just be England or what, but one of our 4 focus areas is technology, and as you can imagine, that's the focus of the Silicon Valley office, and that's my practice working with technology companies, ranging from startups to VC-funded companies all the way up to public companies. So, thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Cool. Adam Draper, founder and managing director of Boost VC. We're an accelerator program where we provide housing, office space, and investment to 50 companies a year, but it's in a programmatic format where it's a 3-month session twice a year. And we are the most active investors in both blockchain and virtual reality. We've invested in about 140 startups over the last 3.5 years, 56 in the blockchain space, 35 in the virtual reality space. You saw 2 of ours out there, Quark VR and Prime. And yeah, just really excited about virtual reality. Yeah.
Thank you, Adam.
Pumped to be here.
Everybody's pumped. Thank you. So Rob gave you a little background on me. I'm a Silicon Valley venture capitalist, but I'm actually a recovering entrepreneur, so I've been in most of your chairs before. I started a media company in Silicon Valley, and we did some of the earliest, what would be considered today, VR technology back in the day, and in turn have been investing since 1999. We're an early stage venture fund that invests in big data, IoT, and mobility. Certainly VR is in the IoT bracket. We're very active in the IoT thought leading space, so if you follow us on Twitter, so everybody get out their little thing, Advanced Ventures on Twitter. And now what I'd love to do is kind of jump into our program here. And what I'm going to do is pose a couple of questions. I'm going to kick it off with some just mind-blowing stats. So I picked this off and probably tweeted it about a week or 2 ago. TrendForce predicted that the total value of the VR market, hardware and software, is going to reach $6.7 billion this year and skyrocket to $70 billion by 2020. That is an epic, epic number. Additionally, the excitement around the space is building, and everybody believes 2016 is the year. So we're all talking about AR, we're all talking about VR, now there's MR, and there's a whole bunch of different acronyms involved in this space. So we've got the AR, VR, mixed reality, immersive video, 360. So even one of our panelists suggests that we take a minute here and kind of run through a couple of those things so everybody's comfortable with some of the acronyms, and we'll make up a few, so just don't tell anybody about that. So let me start with Adam, and if you want to speak a little bit to the acronyms and what VR, AR, MR, immersive,
Sure.
about.
Unless someone, okay, I'll do it.
You're next.
I'm super pumped to explain to you what all these things mean.
Sure.
So
Quickly.
virtual reality is a fully immersive created software world that it's like a screen in front of you, and it's just a full new world where augmented reality is actually you living in this world and overlaying data on top of it, so that like if you're sitting talking to someone, it like pulls up a panel of information and says, Adam Draper, I don't like him very much. Like that's sort of just, yeah, swipe left to and then mixed reality is this idea of sort of mixing the two, where it's I actually don't have a really great. I have this issue where I feel that augmented reality and mixed reality, like, they basically mean the same thing, but I'm sure someone on this panel is going to like debate that.
Yeah, you want to go?
No,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah,
So,
debate it.
Yeah, like I don't know I mean, I guess there.
All right,
So I did AR and VR.
Set him straight, Mershon. Come
No,
on, set
I
him
think
straight.
I think VR is a nice nice overarching umbrella term for just this whole space. When I think AR, I think of Yelp's first move into the space back in 2008, where they had their own little app where you would point a camera at the street and you will see what restaurants are where. I mean, that in a sense is augmenting your view of reality. And just like Adam said, it's attaching a data layer, information, contextualizing what you see around you. Mm-hmm. Virtual reality is all enveloping, where you're closed off and you basically sit back, lean back, have a great time for however many hours, and you get lost into a world. unto itself. So we have a whiteboard here. We're happy to just get up there and, do some diagrams or not. But I see this
They
look
got
of
it.
deer
They
and,
got it.
lost in headlights. So VR, I think, is an overarching term. GoPro, there's also a computer-generated aspect to this where, virtual reality is associated with gaming and these worlds where you can walk around, grab things. I've seen demos of the HTC Vive with those hand joysticks. It's perfect virtual reality. Anyone here remember VRML back in the 1990s?
Thermal.
Okay, Vermal. Yeah, QuickTime VR, also back in the 1990s, Apple pioneered. So Apple's one of the first commercial pioneers of VR. And it's funny because they were one of the earliest, and now we have no idea what the hell they're doing, which is probably a good sign.
Very Apple-esque.
Very Apple-esque. For GoPro, we are dabbling in the VR space. I call it immersive video, or immersive reality, as it were, in the sense that we produced videos that are all enveloping all around you as if you're trapped in a sphere. And, it's like being on a roller coaster ride. You can't really get off of it, but you can experience it. You can see the world around you. So video is more deterministic, whereas VR for gaming and entertainment is more free form and more open. So however you want to look at it, it's all one big market, and it's redefining how we do video and mobile. It's just impacting a lot of industries.
Awesome. Well, that was a great background.
An interesting thing to think about is actually, technically, augmented reality doesn't necessarily mean visual. So, like the Alexa in your home is technically augmenting your reality, where you actually have some data that's being augmenting the way you live. Does anyone have an Alexa, or am I just speaking to an audience of people who don't know what I'm talking about? Okay, Amazon has a product that's called the Echo, and you have to say, Alexa, tell me the sports scores, or Alexa, But I've been sort of interested in the idea, technically augmented reality doesn't mean visual, and it's a much harder technical challenge if it is visual, and that's why I think that technically augmented reality won't be delivered to the end consumer, probably for about 2 years. HoloLens, Magic Leap, these companies that everyone's heard of, they're just delivering dev kits, and mostly just to the enterprise right now. And if what happened in virtual reality is any sort of touchstone for what's going to happen in augmented reality, we're about 2.5 years out. So that's
Great.
my opinion.
Thank you. Well, that's great feedback. So everybody's got it right. VR, AR, MR, and 360. Steve, you want to add anything to that?
Well, I was just going to ask Adam, which do you think is going to be bigger in 5 or 10 years, AR or VR?
I think they're going to be okay. I think if essentially right now everyone's going to think of them as vastly different things, and they're going to evolve to being you're going to be making a decision between an iPhone and a Droid but they're just going to be both. You're going to be able to switch off into virtual reality or switch on into augmented reality. That is so 10 years. That's my 10-year plan. 5 years is a more interesting question. I think virtual reality will have a head start. I think that augmented reality will be used mostly in enterprise and industrial use cases. So I need to repair a pipeline. Someone needs to be able to walk me through that and probably use some tool that I'm viewing in front of me. I think that is probably what will happen. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, and I think that's great. And I think that all frames up when we talked about the 90s and Vermal and video in QuickTime VR and then all of those different acronyms. And now I think one of the best quotes I've heard this year is 2016 will be the year VR shifts from concept to reality. And I think that's what we're all talking about. In fact, I'm glad Adam brought up some of the industrial applications because Deloitte just put out some data that says that AR and VR benefits to the enterprise, now not the fun, not the video games, will likely outpace consumer adoption cycles. And that's notable given the market could be $150 billion. So let's think about this. I mentioned earlier $6 billion plus this year. Consumer plus is 70 billion. Now we're talking 150 billion. So these predictions are just staggering. And so I'm going to pose this to our panel and say, do you think they're realistic? Adam?
Yeah.
Of course he does. He's got a vested
Yeah,
interest.
I'm betting the farm on it. I think it's an interesting saying that enterprise. I don't know who was it. Deloitte said
Deloitte,
this?
yeah,
Okay,
you got to
Deloitte.
buy those guys.
Yeah, so Deloitte was saying that the enterprise is going to be. There's an interesting thing that happens with the adoption of technology, where the personal computer, internet, all these things normally the consumer is not the thing that carries the product to market. It's the fact that the enterprises end up buying something like, for the internet, it was called the intranet, where all of these enterprises were trying to connect all of their workers internally. And then it turned out that the internet was much more valuable once the people had been using it for like enterprise use. And so I think that it could be a very similar situation where virtual reality is sort of the consumer version of what augmented reality is to the enterprise. I don't know. We're just
We're there, that's good.
We're just saying
Don't get to the I don't know part. You knew, that was
Yeah.
great. All right, Steve, tell us about it.
Well, to me, it kind of depends how broad you define augmented reality. 'Cause you
Clearly
can-
broadly in this panel, so
yeah, Amazon.
just go for it.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, I think virtual reality is gonna be limited in terms of its size, you know, the video games and all that. But I think the augmented reality could be huge.
Can I step in here just one?
I don't
Please,
know,
I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
Okay,
please, you're not
so
interrupting.
when everyone talks about,
Back on the
okay,
reservation.
he just stepped on something that, like, I don't think virtual reality is about gaming. So I think virtual reality, I think it's going to be great for onboarding. I'm addicted to a couple virtual reality video games. They're awesome, and I highly recommend using them because you actually get sweaty and like work out, and it's great. But our big bet is actually in the education space. So I think that it's a fundamental like shift in how we are going to be learning. The way that the internet indexes a lot of information, allows you to consume a ton of information fast. This allows you to index experiences, and how we learn things is through experience, and that's a really exciting concept where I'm going to learn how to play tennis from the best tennis players rather than coaches. I'm going to learn how to box. I'm going to learn how to do all these different skill-based things from the best and what they do differently, and I think it'll get everyone up to speed faster on certain things. It's like, has everyone seen The Matrix? I know Kung Fu, like we're getting there.
Yeah,
Thank you, Adam.
I think also video games are seen as like the bellwether, like it's the ultimate example of a really good virtual environment where you're a character that's doing things that you as a person would not do unless you were jacked and or skilled in Kung Fu and different languages. Video games are actually, there's a survey, and here's where I quote science. There was a survey yesterday which asked consumers what they'd use VR for in the next 12 months, and video games were number 6. Education, number 5. Home design, number 4.
Ooh, cool.
Movies and videos were number 3. Looking at my notes here, yep. All right, live events were also up there, but number 1 was travel and tourism. So video games are seen as a really, really awesome, get lost, really, really put that virtual to heart. But, to the point of the numbers, I think whatever we look at, it's going to be a big, big shift for every single industry out there. Commerce, education, anyone that's promoting anything via video or mobile is going to be touched by VR.
Yeah, Deloitte said it's 150 billion in 5 years.
and someone paid a lot of money for those numbers, so just run with it, folks. Great. All right, well, what we just touched on briefly, I'm going to go back to the panel with a little bit, but one of the keys in this whole adoption cycle is vertical markets. And I think Marshad brought up some great data points that while everybody thinks about video games as the really jumping off point for VR, in fact, there's a great article that we just tweeted today, which is video games are not VR, as we're seeing with travel, home design. They believe that possibly real estate will be the #1 adopted VR model to start. And so there's a tremendous opportunity for entrepreneurs there. I know Adam likes education. Maybe you could speak to some other verticals, and then let's roll it back and forth. I'm sure there's a legal angle here too.
Cool. Yeah. All of those things are interesting to me.
Thank you, Adam.
Because, we're betting on the market. So what we look for whenever we're looking at a new technology, we're looking at what that technology does better than the current system, and then also what the new technology needs to make things better than the current system. And so that's why education makes so much sense to me, and that's why we're making a couple bets in that space. But what the technology needs is a lot of infrastructure. There's a lot of data being delivered through these pipes, and right now there's a huge hurdle of $2,300 to be able to actually have a high-quality headset and computer. So it's $800 for the headset, $1,500 for a computer that can run the headset, and that's a huge barrier to entry because you have to render everything on the device, on the computer, which is that's computationally heavy. I think that there's going to be a big move towards computing in the cloud for rendering. I call it cloud graphics, so coined that term. And then there's
All right,
also
he's making stuff up now.
there's a lot.
You heard it here first.
There are a lot of things that, like physics engines, that just the difference between a computer game on the computer and a virtual reality game in a VR headset, like that are necessary to attain that presence concept that everyone wants people to have. Physics is a really important thing in VR, and it's important in computer games, but it's not like crazy important. But then the other thing that we're really looking for is tools for creating content. Right now, you have to be a Unity developer or a Unreal developer, which are sort of the Coke and Pepsi of the developing VR experiences world. Coke. And you really do need to be an artist and a developer to be able to build in those things. So we are making a bet that is not how it's always going to be. We're making a bet that I'm going to be able to actually build some content in VR. I want to be able to build content. It would take me like 6 months to be able to build something in VR right now. So we bet on a couple companies that are making it really easy to build and consume content, and social. Social's just going to be big.
Okay, we're off the map here, man. We
Yeah.
got to move on. All right, Steve, give us something.
Well, I think one of the interesting things will be how the existing infrastructure is affected by some of these things. I mean, take real estate, you know, if you can go and sit in your house and look at homes all over the neighborhood that you might want to buy, and if they didn't need to go through a realtor to post their video and everything, that could have a huge impact on the whole way real estate is done. And I think that's just one example. I'm sure in education it could affect universities and schools. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how the current infrastructure reacts to it and adapts.
I keep using your mic. I mean, I could
Please.
use this, but I might drop it or do a freestyle, so I'll just try to steal yours.
Collecting mics.
Yeah, so I think one thing to touch upon is just sharing mics, I know. You know, there's the verticals, or how I look at it, you know, there's the different industries, but there's also the real vertical in terms of vertical integration of what it takes to produce VR content or, you know, any kind of immersive content. So it's totally redefining, you know, how people experience content from the headsets that are used to view it or the mobile apps that are created all the way down to research and development, you know, in terms of what influences people's buying decisions when it comes to purchasing a product if they view it in VR versus going to a retail store. So all this talk of costs, all this talk about projections, I think it's kind of also underestimated in the sense that there's so much that needs to be done. It's a tectonic shift. I mean, you look at it in terms of like the mobile phone, for analogs, mobile phone impacted telecommunications like VR, ARs, you know, redefining a whole bunch of things, mostly video and entertainment. So this is going to be the new way that we, you know, view content. It's a new way that we interact with people, the new way that we purchase products. I mean, retailers right now are scared because they feel that people buy products that they see in a VR headset, a virtual dressing room, they're not going to go to the stores.
Well,
So-
and that's interesting because just today, and if you track it on Twitter, I don't know if you caught this, but Lowe's is launching actually a HoloRoom to actually see what things look like in a VR sense. And this whole retail category, I'm glad you brought that up, Rashad, because it looks like retail might be one of the core leaders because there's so much ad and marketing dollars that are out in the space right now that those departments can ratchet those in. And as a consumer model, if you think about it, you go test drive cars, you test drive products, listen to stereos when you go out and shop. Well, being able to see that and do that with a VR headset and VR augmented reality or mixed reality is something that people then go home and want to use. So whenever we look on the venture side, where is, if you will, the largest budget opportunity that can be put behind this? And that's where things like real estate, no offense to the edutech, man, you got to lay off on that. But where are the real dollars that are going to go into this quickly? You know, clearly video games, which we all love, which is good, and certainly entertainment, which is there. But things like insurance, things like design, things like real estate may ultimately lead that. And now retail with Lowe's launching the Holo. So that could be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that retail would adopt this. I mean, they're all getting their lunch eaten by Amazon right now, so.
There you go.
they need something.
And Amazon hasn't entered.
Yeah, that's right.
Amazon hasn't entered the space.
We will
yet.
not give you a good mic. I'm just telling you.
I can speak loud if you want.
We'll
You know, I'm
replace
just gonna- I'm
it. We
gonna
just
go
replaced
freestyle,
it with a
you know,
bad
just like,
mic. We're just letting you know.
hello, Cleveland. All right, yes, that works.
All right, I don't work for Amazon. I brought it up twice tonight, but
Yeah, it's good.
you know, retail needs to do something. I don't like shopping. Does anyone else here, do you enjoy, I don't enjoy shopping. Okay.
Okay, back on the reservation here. Okay, so moving on here.
Let's just talk about that for a little bit.
No, your shopping thing, we're just gonna leave off to the side.
Sound.
Could
All right,
kind
here
of
we
come up to Adam and counsel him later around that if you'd like. So, what we've got is a couple of interesting things. So Facebook, Google, we've heard about Amazon more than a few times here, and all the other mobile giants are involved in this. Is there still room for innovation? There are a lot of entrepreneurs out here. You know, this is a program about VR and innovations in the VR space. Is there still room, right? So we've got business development, partnerships. There's legal, intellectual property issues, which is, by the way, Steve is going to lead this particular question. And these things are all facing. So questions, legal challenges, IP challenges with all the big players out there. Talked about that a little bit, Steve.
Sure, well, I mean, I think.
Sure you don't want my opinion on this?
Hey, man, easy. Give this mic to her shot.
I think to a large extent, the legal issues are going to mirror the legal issues you see already in the real world. But to give some examples, there's privacy, product liability, there's IP issues, and I'll talk a little bit about each of them. I mean, product liability, one of the more obvious ones is someone's wearing a VR headset in a room and, they bump into something and get hurt,
Punch someone in the face.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And, in the AR space, what happens if somebody relies on data and that data leads to injury? Maybe the information is incomplete, maybe it's false, maybe it's misleading. You misidentify a mushroom and eat it and get poisoned or something.
It's happened before once, twice.
Whoa, that's kind of dark. Get back to the happy
We're
part.
always dark.
VR happy, big
Medications,
Yeah.
mushrooms, medications.
Right.
Then you talk about privacy, and I guess one question is, are we going to have any reasonable expectation of privacy in the future, Do you need recording permission, or if you're wearing one of these headsets, does that mean somebody should be aware that they're being recorded? What happens if you get improper information? Let's say you're in a job interview and you pull up and you find out someone has a criminal record, or you find out if they're married, and these are in states where you're not allowed to discriminate on that basis. I even read something I thought was pretty funny. A new tort, a digital assault, intentional interference with an augmented reality user to cause fear or harm.
Really?
So,
All right, you guys are starting to make things up to
yeah.
Bill.
So the example they gave was, you hack a website that epileptics use, and they get seizure as a result of that.
Kind of thin, kind of
Yeah,
thin.
kind of thin, okay. So, moving to IP. We're talking about patents and trademarks and copyrights. So, on the patent side, a big issue is, can you patent software-related inventions? And there was a case called Alice versus CLS Bank that greatly limited that ability. The idea was, if you just that case involved an online escrow company, and the idea was escrow is a concept that exists already. You can't patent that, and if all you do is perform it on a computer and that's what you're patenting, you can't patent that. So Alice has been extended to invalidate a lot of software patents. But there was a recent case that talked about a safe harbor if the invention improves the functionality of a computer. So one idea I was thinking of is, VR and AR apps, latency is really important, right? So you make design choices in order to make the computer faster. Maybe you could patent those, although maybe those aren't the main inventions you've got. Another issue for IP is gestures. Maybe you want to protect a gesture that has a certain meaning, downward swipe or something. And can you do that via either a patent or trademark or copyright? On the patent side, maybe you have a classifier that's tuned to the gesture and it recognizes it. Could that be patentable? And then there's trademark issues. There was a case, BMW versus Turbo Squid, where Turbo Squid did three-dimensional models. They had cars that looked like BMWs, And BMW said, well, you're infringing our trademark, especially because you might have a label that says BMW. And so there are all kinds of issues like that. And then there's copyright issues. I mean, clearly, for example, you can't take an AR camera and walk into a movie and movie theater and take the movie and then show it to people, right? Well, can you do that if you're looking at pictures or books? And so there are all kinds of issues that are going to come up in this space that we lawyers are going to deal with, and the government is certain to pass new regulations and try to get their finger in it, so.
I think it just scared the shit out of half the entrepreneurs and me in here.
That's my
doing any
job.
kind of
Well,
development, so.
it's sort of self-affirming, right? So then you have to hire him, which by the way, you use.
Good advertising.
Thanks. But go on, Rajesh.
No, that was just my comment. But I think one thing that also is, I mean, all this plays into societal impact. I mean, all of you guys remember the word, pardon my French, glass holes that came about from, Google Glass. And that kind of made Google take a step back and rethink things. But I think the industry right now, from what I'm seeing and interfacing with the partners that we deal with at GoPro, is there's a lot of open collaboration. There's a lot of open discussion between the big enemies. Google and Facebook are abiding by spherical RFC, request for calls, in terms of what makes a good VR video. They have lobbying groups right now that are, making sure that there are safety implications that are taken into consideration. And then you have, of course, the long-term considerations of what about addiction? When is our Tipper Gore going to come about for VR? Just like, what was she not behind in the 90s? It was rap lyrics, video gaming, and other things. We might have that.
Started with music videos.
Right, music videos also. So all these will bleed into the societal impact, and that's just a consequence of a really bleeding edge technology that is taken by enthusiasts and commercialized into something that's more accessible. So these are all good considerations for GoPro. We provide awesome videos, we provide awesome products to make those videos. We are aware of some of these considerations too. But yeah, thanks for scaring me. That's just.
Adam, you want to weigh in? Plug another company other than Amazon?
No, Boost VC.
Thank you.
No, I mean, I'm on the other side. Like, I'm probably going to be backing the guys who are going to be like hacking into people's visors and like scaring them. And not purposely, I'm not going to condone doing that. So anyone in the audience
It's all
is
being
thinking about doing
videotaped,
that,
by the way. I'm
not
just letting you know
condoning
it's
that.
be on the internet.
But logically, I probably will.
This will be a case one day.
I mean, I remember using AIM, AIM, and like, you were able to like kick your friends off the web. You were able to make them, like, if you sent them a message, that you could completely crash their computer. And like, I think those things will probably happen. I don't know, like if there are legal ramifications. It's more just
Lots. Lots of legal.
Friend-
Lots of legal ramifications. Don't do this at home. And even just
just
don't.
friends being friends.
Yeah. So that. But what I would love to do is just to wrap up this one question, and specifically to GoPro side first as well, because Steve added a lot there. On the biz dev side. Facebook, Google, you briefly mentioned the fact they're all sort of working together. I'd love to get kind of your take on how you're seeing the big guys, and then I want to get Adam's take on how the smaller and earlier stage startups are kind of viewing the big folks out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're working together hand in hand. Obviously they're natural enemies right now, but in a sense of promoting the standard for video, promoting the standard for these new real experiences, I think they're both in lockstep with one another. The engineers talk to one another at academic panels. There are alliances that are now being born with all the major influencers that are contributing to what makes good experiences, what's harmful, what's not. I think we're also seeing that we're teetering on some companies that are now thinking about what an exclusive experience to headsets or an exclusive experience of platforms look like. And yes, while that might promote innovation, it also stifles, accessibility. So that's kind of a dangerous, line that's being crossed. I know Valve the other day had commentary on, exclusive experiences will never be something that Valve promotes. So that's really, really exciting and really, really endearing to hear. But I think all the companies right now, again, since it's manifest destiny, they're working towards one charge of, just making sure this technology gets adopted, and you don't have confused consumers to say, what should I buy? Why are there different experiences?
That's great feedback. And on the other side, from the scrappy startup side, how are they viewing the big folks all working together and, buying up companies and mopping up the space to a large degree, Adam?
I mean, the difference is they're trying to pay for their next meal.
Right.
Yeah. And so they're really just desperately trying to figure out, they're not really worrying about the big guys. Big guys are really building most of the infrastructure. And they make a lot of decisions that affect them technically, like when they're building out experiences, when they're building out tools, when they're building out those things. But it's more a friendly camaraderie. It's just a really important part of the development of the ecosystem that Facebook, Google, GoPro, they all have a really tightly knit developer community of people who are supporting the ecosystem, all of those things. So, everyone's just trying to build towards one unified world where no one leaves their home and everyone's wearing a virtual reality headset.
Well, and I think
That's the dream.
Yeah. His dream, big shopping problem. Okay, that being said though, that I think really frames up a very good opportunity for entrepreneurs in the space. When we look at the different waves of technology here, whether it's networking with the Ciscos and the Junipers of the world, whether it was enterprise or moving into internet and mobility, what it does is it opens up a lot of white space. And speaking from, kind of an investor accelerator side of this story, that leaves a lot of areas for entrepreneurs to find, whether it's higher speed computers, whether it's different elements like that, and whether it's network speeds, whether it is different headsets or different ways to implement it in the design or retail or real estate ways. So, essentially in a gold rush, the old joke is it's the picks and shovels that often do really, really well. So I think that leaves all of the entrepreneurs out there a lot of opportunity, a lot of white space to find different ways to pull in between the big guys, to start lots of small companies. And that makes this a lot more exciting for us on the venture side because we don't know what's next, but we're looking for that great new thing. And then Steve, I think you had one more thing you wanted to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when these development kits come out and everything, I think people with domain expertise in particular verticals, I think you're going to see all kinds of opportunities for entrepreneurs to form companies to take advantage of those. I think that's going to be huge.
Thank you. No, that's great. And so now we're going to move on to a little bit of the hype cycle here, because obviously we're talking about one of the biggest hype cycles out there. So I don't know, many of you may have heard that Magic Leap, which is a VR startup in the Valley, raised $793 million in their well, they got head
And it's
count.
AR.
That's his opinion. But anyways,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So think about it. It was the largest C round in quote unquote internet history. Since there's been a connected world, essentially. So now with that kind of level hype, is funding for early stage and AR stage startups still available? I'm going to start with you because you hand out checks. So come to this guy after, get a check.
That's all I do. I just hand out checks. I was joking, but that is literally
That is what you
I
do.
No money coming in. All
Right,
going out.
shopping problem, hand out checks.
So there's tons of money. There's tons of money for startups in this
Tons,
space.
easy, bud.
There's tons.
Okay.
This is basically what happened. Oculus got bought for $2 billion. Google was threatened. They invested $500 million in Magic Leap. That's great. Those are both things that need to exist in order for the software. Okay. Oculus is essentially or Oculus, the Vive, the whatever. It's like the iPhone or the Droid. There's going to be so many huge parts of this ecosystem that are just software that are going to be built by people in this room, people outside this room, people in other rooms, other places, and we needed those things to work, those hardware components, those specialized virtual reality components, in order for the ecosystem to thrive. And venture capitalists like myself and everyone's just really, really excited about it. They're starting to really try to dive in and find out what the businesses are. I will say that there is sort of a generalization that everyone thinks games is the beginning of things.
You think games are the beginning?
Well, I think education's the thing. I think everyone should be backing education. Evidently, retail, whoever wants to do that.
I'm just talking about where the cash is. You can back whatever you want.
Yeah, real estate.
That whole real estate thing didn't work out in California for anybody.
Yeah, but By the way, we did back a tourism one, so it is really
I've tried
gonna
it.
be a
That
thing.
one's cool.
Yeah, so basically, and to Steve's point about like he was mentioning that like how does it impact education globally, that sort of thing. Like imagine having someone who's never been able to travel because of financial reasons be able to view all these different cultures, all the different worlds. Like that's the impact that this thing has.
So the question was,
yeah, I know,
is there
I
still
know what
money?
the question was.
All right, just check.
I'm still talking.
That's right.
Basically, I think it's the beginning. I like those were two major events, but there hasn't been like, I'd say there's a lot of seed and Series A based stuff that's just starting. Like that's sort of where I would target.
So the end product is, yes, there's cash. He will give you some, and there's gonna be lots more. Lots and lots.
Yeah,
Tons. You heard it here. Direct
Also,
quote.
put that through the filter of I'm completely biased and completely betting on this.
Wait,
market.
you don't say that to the end.
Yeah.
We need you. Stay with us. Stay with us. Steve, what are you seeing? Are you seeing lots of deals come through here? Are you papering lots of financings?
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of VR and AR companies, absolutely.
And,
As a lawyer, very short, very sweet.
and are they getting?
Can't talk about any of them.
I'm pumped.
Adam will tell you about all of them. He will tell you none. All right, and here and down at the end from GoPro. I mean, you guys are actually doing a lot. You're doing a lot right now. So.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of want to harp on the education front because I'm a big believer in education, ed tech. One of the reasons why we love this project with Google is a cardboard initiative and making, you know, VR and just vicarious living, you know, a reality for students, being able to see worlds that they can't travel to, especially some of the folks that can't afford to just, you know, go to another city. So one of the reasons
And since you made cameras, that's very efficient right there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of video of that, right?
yeah, precisely.
Just check it. Everybody's got an angle.
It's a personal passion of mine, ed tech. But in terms of like Magic Leap raising that much money, having seen Magic Leap, having talked to the guys, they haven't raised enough. I mean, they're producing a consumer grade product. They're producing something that they want every man, every woman, every child to wear. So this is a very ambitious ask, and 1.3 billion is simply not enough to get to where they want to be, especially with something, you know, as iterative as you see in HoloLens and the Oculus, where they're giving all these dev kits and these atrocious headsets that you never be seen in public wearing. Magic Leap wants to have something nice, something that works. So do I think from an industry level, you know, has it dried up? I mean, I defer to guys like this guy right here to my right. But I think, should it dry up? No, I don't think it's hyped at all. I think the institutionals are doing a good job in funding really good entrepreneurial ideas. And I think the strategics and the corporates are kind of seeing, how do we reallocate our efforts into, you know, getting behind this. Valve, again, I bring them up. I think 2 days ago they said 1/3 of their 300-man team is now working on VR. The Android team at Google is massive. The Facebook 360 team is massive. Apple hired researcher Doug Bowman from Virginia University, and Google hired Paul Debevak at USC. I mean, we're seeing all this consolidation of talent. So we're not really seeing what's being done. We're not really seeing the fruits of some of these actions and how it affects, you know, just how much money really into this. So those figures that we quote are just the tip of the iceberg. And I think there's a lot that needs to be done. A lot more from institutionals to realize there's some really bad ideas also. But the really good ones are the ones that we'll be seeing get a lot more investment in 2017.
Anything to add to that, Adam?
You
Didn't have anything to add. Wait. Okay, go for it, man.
No, I agree. I agree.
Wow, that was great. Well, that puts us right into our 8 o'clock slot, and that was a great segue into questions from you folks, because a big part of why we're here is to not only give you our opinions and postulate a little bit here and there, but really to also
Talk
answer.
about ourselves a little bit.
Stay with it. The key is going to be answering some of your questions. We've got a really diverse panel up here. There's a mechanism for that. So we've actually got a podium. Don't be scared. Yeah. Give you a fake microphone. And feel free, you know, really a big part of it is for you to get access to all of us all at once. We want you to ask posing questions that make us have, you know, debate up here and essentially, you know, question some of the things that are said. So I'm sure there are a lot of entrepreneurs out. Hopefully some people have some questions.
How many entrepreneurs are in the audience? Can you raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur? That's good.
That's nice.
Great.
So, and you all have to have
What the heck are the
questions.
rest of you?
Are there any investors? Okay, well, all the entrepreneurs, you should go.
You're
ransack
done.
that guy.
You just FYI, when they ask for the investor hands, you never raise your hand. Okay, so since there are so many of you, you've got to have some questions. So any questions, we'll just ask people if you want to step up there, if you don't mind. Yeah, that we have a mic that might or might not work.
Hey, yeah, it works.
Great, so just tell us your name, not too much of a company plug, but a good question.
Okay, my name is Salvador, and my question is very simple. Who are the ones that are gonna get the big piece of pie of money from this industry? Is it gonna be the big companies that are getting together to build the new MR or AR of the industry and the new products, or are gonna be the companies that will come with the big innovation patent, or is it gonna be the small companies that will just hit it, like Facebook, for instance?
Well, eventually small companies become big companies. Ideally.
That's our plan. That's
Yeah.
our plan. The VC guys, that's our plan.
Yeah, I mean, my general answer is, I think that the entire market's gonna grow, and I think there'll be a lot of people who win in different verticals. So I think there's probably gonna be, like, Facebook's not gonna win as hard as someone else in the education space. I don't think. Maybe
got
that's
this
what they're
real thing.
GoPro's probably gonna win in that, evidently. So I think, and then there's a lot of infrastructure stuff that I think there needs to be nimble teams that work on in order to solve those problems. So I'm obviously wanting, we're betting on a lot of different startups, and that's where I think there's going to be a lot of growth. But there's going to be growth on both sides, and I think it's just a really small pie right now. No one's won yet. No one's profitable based off this industry. Yeah, like no one's making money.
So I guess I'd ask, is it going to be like the evolution of the computer industry where, it went from hardware to software and mobile phones and everything? You're going to see that where the end-all hardware becomes commoditized and...
Completely. That's definitely, I mean, that's.
No offense here.
Not at all.
I mean, that's why it was a big blow to Oculus when Vive actually delivered with the sensors and the hand controllers, was because that's what that was the promise of virtual reality, and the Oculus hasn't delivered that yet. And it's because they're able to manufacture better at this moment. That's their core competency, and so that's going to be a commoditized business. Hardware does end up being a commodity. Software ends up being the proprietary thing, and I think that's going to be a big deal. So software.
Very good, simple question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is to Adam, the first question. You said traveling and education are the areas which will be a big hit.
What was the first one that I said?
Yeah.
Traveling. Well, you said traveling. I agreed, yes.
Yeah. So traveling, when you say, do you see content creators for traveling, or do you see just apps which are for traveling, which will be a major hit? People who create content.
Show me something I can't imagine, like that's always what I'm looking for. I'm looking to be like wowed. I like things that I couldn't have come up with on my own. But so what we did back was a company called Realities, where they use photogrammetry, which is a way in which we use high-resolution 2D photos to create one-to-one models of real-world things in virtual reality. And so they're like castles that you can tour. They did an Alcatraz prison cell. They did all these cool things. So that's like real tourism. Like you can actually feel like you're there. But there's also probably going to be a way in which you book airline tickets online, and like those types of businesses. So I could be in that for travel too.
Yeah. My second question with respect to traveling is, how do you scale a company which is into traveling, which shoots videos, VR 360 videos? How do you scale that company?
How do you scale 360 videos?
No, how do you scale a company which is like, say, 5 people and they go and shoot 360-degree videos?
Crowdsource.
Uber. Yeah, use an Uber model. On demand, there people buy a lot of the GoPros and...
Yeah.
Thank you, Rashad.
Some combination of what we said. The way you scale is definitely crowdsourced Uberification of things. And yeah.
Yeah, my last question is to Meshad. GoPro planning to come up with a single camera which can take 360-degree video and auto stitches it?
He was worried about this
Here,
question.
I'll answer it for you. I can neither confirm nor deny that GoPro is working on anything of that sort.
He was never here. And you guys didn't see the Odyssey thing earlier either, because like we're getting in big trouble for that.
I mean, our CEO has publicly stated that we are looking to develop consumer solutions. We kind of have consumer-ish solutions right now with our 6-camera play and our. Do I have a metal plate in my head with the feedback, or is there? Okay, thank you.
Way too much info.
We are of course working on more delightful experiences for consumers. Is that a good pitch to give? Okay, awesome. I want to go back to the travel bit. So one thing, if I can put my sci-fi, Snow Crash, Ready Player One hat on, there are virtual worlds that have yet to be developed. If you have seen the HoloLens demo, they take you to Mars. They actually put you there. The NASA JPL mission has cartographed the entire surface of Mars, and they're able to have people interface with one another. Second Life, great example of virtual tourism, virtual travel. We're being approached left and right by airlines, destination resorts, hotel chains, saying, we want people to see the experience before they book, a ticket, or before they bring their friends or talk about it. But, looking down the road in true virtual reality fashion, there's a big industry to be made around worlds that don't yet exist. And that's what really excites me as a geek.
Hello, my name is Nassim. I'm a game developer, research in machine learning and AI. First, a joke question for GoPro.
Those are like 4 hype words you just slung together.
Oh, well, I'm
There's a guy who'll give you a
Machine
job.
learning,
I think
AI,
that Mike is here somewhere.
Virtual reality.
So, joke question for the GoPro. Have you guys thought of micro cameras so people can explore inside their bodies as like trips of self-discovery? Okay. And then for the serious question, because now we're controlling people's perceptions more and more. And with brainwave detection, we can also somewhat see how their brains are performing. So are there any legal ramifications, let's say people walking around and seeing different things, even if they're in the same space? And how that affects, witnessing and so on and so forth.
I heard legal, so I'm going straight to you.
I'll just say I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, to add to that, it's subjective. Everyone's going to have a different perception of what they see. Everyone's going to interpret differently. They're going to make decisions based on their interpretations, just like we have video today. With 360 video, you add a whole, heckload, to avoid cursing of, angles and ability to see what the cameraman or camerawoman is looking at. You have the unfiltered, raw view of what's going on in that space. One thing that, is amazing about 360 videos is that you are the cameraman, and you have the option to look left and right, up and down, and make the video, make the experience yours, tailored to what you want, as opposed to 2D or flatty, where you have a director who's trying to make a story out of it. So yeah, perception, legal ramifications, things like that. I don't know what that entails, but you're going to have a lot more subjectivity, a lot more stories to be told just by raw video in 3D or in 360.
One last
But,
question.
if I could add one thing, I mean, just think of the police cameras and everything. The more cameras and video you have out there, I think the more objective things become, in a sense.
One last question. As a game developer, we like to make addictive games. So with virtual reality. Okay. Well, but where we have issues with the law if our games become too addictive, because again, we have so much control over people's perceptions that we might see illegal video games just because they become so addictive.
Angry Birds should be arrested.
Yeah.
It's your call. I'm not good. I don't know.
No. There are definitely. I've read articles talking about people getting too carried away in virtual reality, so that it has an adverse impact on them, and who's responsible for that and everything.
Not me.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll move to the next question.
Hello, my name is Andrew Ong. I do IoT stuff for a living with Raspberry Pis, Arduinos, that kind of stuff. And I am also interested in education. I'm wondering what is most in demand. Is it the academic stuff, or is it the enterprise education where you need to teach employees?
I mean, that's completely, it's up to you. There's no, I mean, they're both big markets. So if you wanted to attack either of them, you could build a big business. The issue is what you like to do. I don't know if is this question because you want to start something in that space or?
Yes.
Okay. Pick the one you like better and build it because they're both huge markets. That's my answer. And they will both be good for virtual reality.
Does it have to be interactive, do you think? Is that like a key requirement?
I think the key requirement would be that you learn, probably. And
That's the educating part.
And so interactive or not, I think that would be the only key requirement. So I think interactive would be cool. It'd be good. Yeah, it's a good idea.
I mean, if I could add one thing, I mean, I think in education in general, as opposed to education in an enterprise, the big issue is how you monetize it. How are you going to make money from it? You could do something that's really socially valuable and not be able to create a business out of it. And I think that's kind of the big challenge in education. Whereas if you're doing e-learning within an organization, I think you have a better opportunity to monetize it. You provide value, they're going to pay for it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Diana. I work on computer vision. And I have a question in terms of a lot of these experiences in AR and VR rely on very heavy, intensive hardware. So that's why there's all custom built. What are the thoughts in terms of building experiences for mobile phone and the trajectory of mobile phones are also getting more powerful? Apple made acquisition of stereo camera components, Pelican, and whether some of these experiences are going to be able to reach more users because everyone owns a phone already. You have the Google Cardboard, so possibly someone will build like a Google Cardboard version for HoloLens. Is that even worthwhile exploring and the thoughts around that?
Yeah, let me tackle this real quick. So silicon will only get better, a lot better. I mean, I can quote Moore's Law, but I won't. I mean, what you can get in the MVP or...
You just did.
Quoting Moore's Law, silicon's going to get better. So, I mean, you're going to have more powerful chips in the devices that can process more, have baked-in algorithm, baked-in classifiers. They don't need to rely on the cloud. You know, companies like Movidius are doing a great job right now for companies like Google and for mobile. I think we'll get to a point where this is something we don't need to worry about. Maybe we'll have ubiquitous Wi-Fi that's called something else that has a ubiquitous connection to the cloud that does really intensive processing. We don't know yet. But there are limitations, and you know, for people like you, people like me who are excited about this stuff, we can look at HoloLens, we can look at Magic Leap and say, is that really it? Because we're exposed to what's coming down the road. But it'll just get better and better and better.
Yeah, and she just brought up a bunch of great new opportunities for entrepreneurs that are sitting in this room, right? Cloud processing for VR, reducing you know, the overhead of the machines, reducing the cost of the actual consumer or business-facing piece of the story. All of those are unique businesses. Then there's software and management of all of those. So it's a huge model.
Yeah, you were sort of also asking about like the adoption of mobile VR AR. That was sort of the question. So some quick stats. There were 1 million daily active users of the Google Cardboard last month. There were 1 million monthly active users of the Samsung Gear last month. And there have only been 60,000 total Vive and Oculus Rifts shipped. So, I mean, the market's way bigger in the mobile space right now than either of the other, but the computation power is way better on the machine, and so the experiences are just going to be better. Eventually, we're going to solve the moving issue with cell phones, like you'll actually be able to move and interact with the worlds. Eventually, we'll be able to have controllers with that. I think Google has some cool new like cardboard controller they created. So yeah, my thought process is, I think the end goal is mobile. Like, I think your phone runs your life, and that's what the end goal is. We have 7 years, 10 years for that, ish, probably.
Thank you.
So build something cool.
also a computer vision scientist, but that's my daytime job. So at night, I'm an entrepreneur. And my question is, I have some general questions, like as for the business model, do you think hardware or software is more profitable? Like in the VR space, you can like do some very cool hardwares, but you can also do programming, just the software, or you can combine them both. So which direction do you think is the best
So I've been
business
waiting
model?
for this question so that we can get the Rashad and Adam knife fight going up here. Because Rashad is hardware, Adam is software.
So I'm going to say something that's probably going to get both of us to agree. Is it depends what problem you're trying to solve. Completely. Like I was when entrepreneurs are like, hey, I'm going to work in VR. That's not a thing. Like I'm going to solve education for people in India who don't have access to electricity. Like that's the thing. That's what you're using virtual reality for. You're using it as a tool. Like it's always really important to think of it as a tool rather than like the end goal is not virtual reality. The end goal is solving a problem for people.
But the development time is different as for the hardware and software. So hardware takes like more time.
Yeah,
So
we mostly back software. So like it just strictly because they're like, yeah. I'm not an expert on hardware. That's why I mostly back software.
My
Like I
background
said,
prior to GoPro is software, and I've always believed in building the hardware that the software can make the most use of. So looking forward and seeing, what it is that I want to achieve with the software. What does the hardware in several months, whether 6, 18, however many, can support, and build around that. And constantly iterate. Don't feel that the hardware you build now or planning to build should be the be-all, end-all of your product. Software to me always wins, in that you can abstract software and use that in other devices. You can license that out to others if they have similar hardware plays. So, I don't really have an answer in terms of which is going to succeed because it depends on the company and the supply chain.
Like what would you build that's hardware right now?
yeah, for VR, there's probably not so much, but for yeah, that's true. Yeah, but for like AR, augmented reality, that's more of a I don't know. There's more like a innovation.
Yeah, so there's a lot
compounds
happening
there.
there, especially in things like healthcare, where augmented reality, we're seeing a lot happening in connected health, where surgeons are now getting vital sign data on the inside of a lens, so they don't have to ask people. That data is much faster coming in. Certainly, we're now seeing industrial level, people working underwater in hazardous environments, getting data. So, there's a lot to be done in that environment. I think you just have to determine early on, to Adam's point, what problem are you solving? And then kind of build it out from there, right? I mean, there's lots of different white spaces that you can attack, and those are all very interesting. I think the immediate thought is let's look at things like headsets, right? Well, to Anna's point, you're not going to go out and build more headsets, and things like that are not for the faint of heart. I mean, GoPro was a rare example how a big hardware company in today's world can really make it. So I think that when you look at it, you kind of slice and dice into really good markets, because a piece of healthcare equipment could be $20 or $30 or $50 or $100,000 for a single piece of equipment, because it's that critical. And so you can build a big business around these unique areas as well.
Yeah, you know what I want to see? I want to see like the VR golf club. Like I'm in VR and it's a golf club that's going to tell me if I'm hitting it correctly or not. Or I just saw one for cycling, like cyclists. There's a new like VR cycling game thing where you actually get exercise, which looks awesome.
I would find a niche, like there's so much white space, find the niche, something that's underserved, preferably something that's you're passionate about also, own it, market it, hold it, and then expand. I mean, GoPro started as, a wrist bracelet that housed a disposable Fujifilm camera. And now we're actually making our own, cameras and making a full end-to-end stack. So find something that you love, hopefully, something you're really passionate about, you can build a product, own it, build around it.
But regarding passion, like if you are passionate about something, but during your process of development, you see something very similar already, like in the news or coming out. So at that time, how would you deal with that? Would you still be doing the development, or you want to change the
When
direction?
GoPro was started, I'm pretty sure there were a lot of cameras that existed.
Yep.
So like, do it better.
Well, there's perseverance. I mean, there are a lot of models. I mean, I think there's a famous word we all coined in the Valley called pivot, right? And oftentimes, you don't start out knowing what the outcome is going to be. And in fact, what we tend to like to see on the venture side is customer feedback. Well, the last thing we want to do is see you kind of go back into your cave and create these things. We really want that out in the space and customer feedback, because what your customer decides to do with the product may be very different than what you decide to do with it. And the famous word the customer is always right is often the case, because they may find a much better use case than you've ever thought of in there. So, getting it out, getting it tested, getting it in the hands of people who are going to use it, whether those are doctors or students in India or whatnot, should be one of your first tasks. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is that in terms of pivoting, it's not that they sometimes pivot. I'd say they almost always pivot. It's very rare a company knows what it's going to do at inception and actually does exactly that.
And don't let a similar idea deter you. I mean, don't feel just because someone came out with the same application and the same product, that's the be-all, end-all. Well, that's it. You got to go back to the drawing board. I mean, give it a whirl, go out to customers better, go market the hell out of it, have an open feedback loop. Don't feel also you need to go into a cave for 18 months and build something because you're closing yourself off from everything else.
When starting a company, there's like 1,000 reasons a day that you can say no to doing it. So you need to really be driven to create whatever you're going to be creating.
Thank you.
Hi, CJ again. So my question is more process-driven, but not in the technology sense, more in the organizational sense. So for a good reason, there are some roles that are really well defined right now, obviously in the developer, software, and hardware senses. But as these two spaces develop on the content side, how will marketing and advertising teams be able to leverage the content, both in AR and VR? Will it be more content syndication, affiliate? How will that evolve, you think?
Mark, you want to take first cracks?
Yeah, I mean, the GoPro, we always joke about how our content that we produce are both, testaments to the quality and ability of the camera and commercials. In terms of, content syndication, in terms of content playback, there's still very limited distribution outlets for VR content at this moment. You have the headsets that have their own proprietary store, and you got, Facebook 360 and YouTube 360. So we're only going to see that grow in terms of the capabilities of those two platforms, and you're seeing niche, specific specialty networks coming out right now, like sports-oriented VR, car-oriented VR. We're seeing many startups right now that say, I want to be the YouTube for 360 for cats or whatever. So, in terms of how marketers and advertisers approach this, I think for the foreseeable future, the big players are going to get the most bucks, but over time they're going to see passionate communities go to these niche sites, and they're going to command higher CPMs, of course, because they have more loyal enthusiasts, more loyal followers. But we'll probably be about a few months away from seeing any kind of real traction around what makes a good VR video. Right now, analytics for VR videos are kind of, Marketers talk about monetization, they talk about analytics. I haven't really seen a really cool solution out there. Facebook has talked at F8 about having heat maps for marketers in the video to see where somebody is viewing and if they paused and where their focus of attention is. So there could be product placement opportunities, branded partnership opportunities. It's a gold rush right now. IAB has not come in this yet. International Advertising Bureau has not come into this yet for any kind of standard. If they get involved soon, if they haven't already, then it's a serious indication that okay, now we got to really pivot a lot of our dollars to VR.
And, that was something that was talked about a little bit earlier on the retail side. I mean, I was just recently somewhere where I was walking down a little street. It was a real estate shop. They had a bunch of flyers with little pictures and little stats on these different properties. If you think about a use case for an AR VR model, that is an incredibly basic yet meaningful use case, right? I could have walked in and did a virtual tour in real time of every single one of those little flyer houses on the wall right there. And that all comes out of marketing budgets, right? So if you think about it, this is a really key adoptive model, because if it helps sell that house, then their existing spend is there. And if you look at places like real estate, now drones are being used to do walkthroughs, 3D 360 immersions, video was like a huge impact in that model. I mean, clearly that's where some spends are going to happen. Also in design, if you're going to order a couch in purple, look at it through the VR system before you order it.
AR is a marketer's wet dream right now. I mean, if you see Minority Report, sorry, AR is a marketer's dream right now.
There you go. This will be on the internet, let me remind you. Okay, now it's church. I got everybody else on this one.
There are definitions behind that. In a sense, the personalization has been the holy grail for all marketers everywhere. And if you see Minority Report, that's a classic example of walking down a hallway and having people say, "Hey, CJ, buy our latest toothpaste. It'll look good on your, teeth or whatever." The ability to overlay clothes, the ability to, see a furnishing in your house, in real time, having products that are tailored to your every desire. Great. I mean, current ways of personalization are things like retargeted ads or social, graph recommendations. It's only going to get a lot more interesting and also annoying with AR.
You brought up fashion because that's very interesting because, in tracking what some of the startups are doing in fashion, we've just gotten to the point where you can take kind of a quasi still image, upload that, the graphics and image skills are now enough where they can take that product you want to purchase, overlay it over your picture, give it a 3D-esque effect. I mean, this is just sort of happening. Imagine taking that a step further and being able to put on a HoloLens and actually seeing yourself wearing that device. That's an incredible game-changing factor. And when you look at that, the margins in some of these retail businesses are incredibly high because of the marketing and advertising spend. So that's where real dollars can get deployed very quickly and create an adoption level that we haven't seen in other areas because, we love video games, but you're all about selling video games. But when you're all about selling every single piece of clothing that Macy's or Neiman Marcus sells, there's a much bigger pool of dollars to work from coming out of what today is considered a slush fund in order to fund that. So those are some really exciting areas that we think are going to explode.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, my name is Richard. I have a quick question about VR entertainment. So we know that the Void, the VR theme park in Utah is a big hit. Are you aware of any other efforts in the US or around the world that is underway to develop something similar to the Void or something up to that effect? And what are your general thoughts about just VR entertainment in the theme park?
Okay, so remember that follow us on Twitter part? I think we tweeted about there. So Disney's got innovation underway. Universal's got innovation underway. Cinemark, a lot of the movie theater chains are now talking about that. We've already seen sort of VR kiosks that they're talking about, individual kiosks, mostly because the hardware is still, as Adam said earlier, I think it's about $2,300 per person, right? So not everybody's going to have the capacity to go out and staff up their house with hardware. But if you can go out and rent an experience around that, that's a whole new market as well. So that is really a game changer there. And we know that all of the major players in theme entertainment are there.
Have you been to the new Harry Potter land?
No.
So their ride is sort of...
We know way too much about you.
It sounds like we're way off, but I'm way off base. By the way, I'm obsessed with Harry Potter, get over it. But their ride is they call it 3D, but it really is about virtual reality, and there's going to be a huge move towards these VR roller coasters for theme parks because it takes up less real estate. It's literally just like you're sitting in a seat and they're shaking you. So you don't need like all this industrial like work that goes into like creating this big ride. You can literally, it's going to be software, it's going to be computer generated graphics, it's going to be all that stuff. So I mean, I think theme parks are definitely looking at this. I think there's going to be tons of theme parks. You could have a theme park in just a normal building. You're going to be able to step into and have like choices of different rides that you get to go on. And so, we have a company called Spaces that's managing a lot of different IP for a lot of different businesses. They have a deal to start creating a theme park in China. I think there's like a lot of stuff going on. So, yeah.
Where's the Harry Potter land?
In Orlando, Florida.
Let's plug in another company.
Yeah, Orlando, and I went to the one that's in LA. So I went to Universal. It's in Universal Studios. It's like a piece of it.
Well, and there's something.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, and there's something that is very important about that. Recently, there was some data that came out that one of the key factors in making VR and AR believable is the physical side. And they joked about calling physics, which means that if you happen to be on a virtual boat ride, there happens to be a spritz of moisture on you, it is exponentially more virtual reality. So then when you think about things like that in a theme park environment, yeah, so basically in a lot of ways, you can end up that with a theme park style environment to Adam's point in a room, but it may be required if you're exploring a fire scene. There's smoke, there's heat, things like that, which are things that are very expensive. Most people aren't going to do that at home.
So to scare you a little bit, I mean, I think it was Samsung, one of the big companies, had a patent around having these headphones that project ultrasonic waves into the ear that affect the eardrums to create these sensations that would otherwise not be experienced. So there are people that are now actively messing with your brain to create those experiences you would have to do in the physical world. And we haven't even talked here about haptics. We've been talking about playback on mobile, playback in the HMD, head-mounted device. But if you read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, it's a really good example where a guy got into a suit that had millions of haptic sensors around him that simulated him running, without him even getting up from his chair. So, the notion of theme parks that dabble in the VR, that's great, but I'm thinking arcades. I'm thinking the return back to the old coin ops, and I see this actually hitting reality pretty soon. The Void, which you mentioned, is doing a pretty good job there. And, whether or not that'll be consumerized in the next few months, probably not. Maybe you guys have seen those little octagonal treadmills that people are running on while wearing an HMD. I'm not going to buy that, and I don't think anyone here would buy that. But we are seeing those as examples that, this is the direction people want to go, where they want to experience an entirely new world, not just visually, but, olfactory with their nose, physically, ears, everything. So we're just, again, when I say tip of the iceberg, it's like we're not even on the iceberg right now. We're just looking at it from the very top.
That is an awesome quote, and we're going to end it on that note. So if tip of the iceberg, that's where we're at right now. So I learned a lot beyond the fact that Adam's got like an edutech fetish and has some serious shopping issues. And I want to thank our fantastic panel here. I learned a lot. Thank you all. I really appreciate it.